My name's Anton Wynne and I'm the head of Cirencester Foodbank, and it's great to be with you to share some of our findings this morning. From the report, we've found a range of different pieces of data that we think we can use to impact the rise in food poverty and bring about real change. But it's only one part, a small part of a much bigger jigsaw. We have this piece and we share this with you today so that you can see what we have learned, what we have seen. But we know that you also have different pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. So we're really keen to hear from you as well as to what you are seeing and where that links up with what we have identified as real issues for people who are in food poverty. So over the past 12 months, we have seen 4,473 parcels distributed to clients. And when we talk about a parcel, that is 3 days of emergency food for one person. And it's not just food. In that parcel, we put household, cleaning, hygiene, baby products. We even put, when we have it, fresh fruit and vegetables to support people. The essentials that people need in order to make it through the week. And that number is growing. It's 19% higher than 3 years ago. Now, obviously, as Anne mentioned, we have just come through a really challenging time with the pandemic where the food bank saw its numbers skyrocket. So it's difficult for us to compare year on year with such anomalous figures from 2020 to 2021. And in fact, even in the 13 days from the 18th of March in 2020, when schools shut, we saw a 140% rise in demand. So even our figures for 2019-20 are skewed by the pandemic. But we're still seeing that number rise. Something that hasn't changed is the amount that is going to support children. And over 50% of our food parcels go to young people who are 16 years and under. And of that, 3/4 of that 50% supports children who are primary school age or younger. And we've drawn those figures out because we think actually there is something really important here that we want to talk about in a moment. So hold on to those statistics for the time being because we're going to return to them. Over the past 12 months, we've seen a 10% increase in the number of agencies referring into us. Now, at first glance, that might be seen as a positive. It could be seen that actually that means more people can easily get help with having more avenues to be referred to the food bank. But actually, we don't think that is what the data is telling us. Over the past 12 months, talking with clients and referral agencies, what we're discovering is that people in need are finding it harder to get support, not easier. And the reason that more agencies are referring to us is that clients are having to seek around for other pathways to get referrals so that they can get help. Clients have told us that they've been unable to get through to traditional support services where the phone will ring and not be answered. They've told us that of the long wait times, especially around mental health support. But we've also seen that there's been a shift within the support networks that they used to access. Over the pandemic and even into late 2021, a number of agencies and referral routes still had to have their doors closed. They didn't reopen their buildings. And this meant that actually people, if they were used to a walk-in service, couldn't get support. Cotswold District Council and Tetbury Town Council were two big referral pathways for people in need of support. But since 2019, their referrals have dropped 80% and 98% respectively. Another really key referral partner for us, which was Cirencester Signpost, found that they were so overwhelmed by demand, they had to change the way in which they got people help. And therefore they stepped back as a referral partner to us. And instead now, in turn, they refer people to other pathways. They equated for between 10 to 20% of our referrals between 2017 to 2019. And we've only seen a small proportion of those being referred come back into other routes. So what we're actually seeing here is that people are finding it harder and harder to get the support they need, even when in an emergency crisis. Another thing we're seeing is a rise in referrals from statutory agencies. Statutory services made over 62% of our referrals over the past 12 months. That's 3/5 of referrals. And that means, if we look at it, that actually we are, at the food bank, becoming part of the social safety net for statutory services. That wasn't part of our plan when we originally set up food banks. There needs to be more done to support people within the benefit system, within universal credit, within PIP, so that actually they can afford the essentials on a weekly basis. Another interesting statistic, and this is where I bring back in the figures of the 50% of children 16 and under being referred to us, is that educational settings accounted for 36% of our referrals. So that's a huge chunk of that statutory referral amount. And what interests us here is that percentage of referrals from educational establishments has not changed since before the pandemic. That's despite the fact that from 2020 onwards, we have seen an increase in schools' support to help people with hunger. So school holiday meals is 23% of all of our referrals. But since 2020, the holiday free school meal scheme has come into place, giving pupils £15 vouchers so that they can have food over the school holidays. We've also seen the holiday activity and food programme brought into place. So despite this other provision coming in, we don't see a drop in the food bank demand. What we believe, again, from speaking with education establishments, is that these are having an impact on food insecurity. It's just that the need has grown so much more that actually food bank support is still required. We know that there are gaps here within our data. We do not collect data from schools on whether those referred into us are eligible for free school meals. Anybody can be referred into the food bank. There's not a limit on whether they are eligible for free school meals or not. But because we don't know how many of them are free school meals eligible families, we don't know if this impact is from those who do not qualify for free school meals, especially with the tightening of the free school meal system. And that's something we're going to be looking at, working with education establishments to try and gather more data on over the next 12 months, so we can really drill down as to what is happening here for families who are often finding themselves needing to be referred into the food bank. Within that statutory area as well, which has seen the biggest increase, health services is the sector which has seen the largest growth in referrals. They now account for 12% of all referrals from statutory agencies. That's up 6% in the past year. And what interests us again with health services referring into us is that they don't refer for what you might assume to be the normal reason for people needing help through the GPs or health services. We might expect that people referred in would be coming in for sickness, ill health, COVID. But actually, the reason for referral from health services is multifaceted. It's complex. It ranges from debt to low income, to delays in benefit. These are things that whilst GPs can signpost out to get more support, it's not their primary focus. So with education sectors and with healthcare, we are working really hard at the food bank to ensure that additional support is brought in both for our signposting and through our citizens' advice relationship with our food bank advisor to ensure that these people who don't get frontline support on their referral are getting additional help. As you may know, the pandemic brought about changes to our model for provision, and we had to switch to a delivery model for some time. We are now moving back towards reopening centres, and I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment. But what it has done is it's allowed us, with our delivery model, to support people who traditionally could not reach our food banks. We recognise from speaking with clients that there is a real issue with transport deprivation across the South Cotswolds. We'd go further and say that people are trapped in transport poverty, where they do not have access or funding to get to the support that they need. Our delivery model has meant that we can take that emergency support to them. And our telephone signposting system means that we can support them where they're at. But we want to see more done within those local areas. Despite the fact that we are on a delivery model, our referrals still allocate themselves to the nearest food bank. So over the past 12 months, we can see the impact of that delivery as our Fairford Food Bank has grown in demand by 151%. And that's therefore seeing those who are in those communities around Fairford now getting support from delivery. In Tetbury, demand has grown 35%. In Cirencester, over the past year, we've actually seen a decline in demand. And if this were because of the fact that people's situations are being resolved, I would be here cheering in front of you. That is not what we're finding. If we go back to that period of 2019-20, March the 18th, when schools shut down through to the end of March, we saw such a rise in referral numbers, it skewed all of our figures, and a lot of that support went into central Cirencester, especially as we were not as far along as delivering during that first part of the pandemic. And that skews our figures. But if we look back a little bit further to the previous year, we can see that actually demand is rising still in Cirencester for 7%. So if we take out those anomalies that we saw because of that very short 13-day period, actually we're still seeing an increase in demand in the area. The final bit of information I want to draw out of our data from the report, as I say, you can see the full report when you read it either online or as it's mailed to you. It's to speak into our signposting and support. Traditionally, the food bank is seen as an organisation that delivers food to help people in their crisis. But actually, we don't want to continue to be a sticking plaster. We need to be providing more support and help, which is why, back in 2020, we funded a CA worker to provide support to those most in need. And the data we have coming out of that relationship shows us that 56% of the clients referred in had issues with debt. But actually, with support, only 47% of them needed more than one food bank referral. So actually, this is short-term crisis still that is being affected. We're really pleased within that relationship that we have managed to write off £13,500 worth of debt for clients, which has made a massive impact to people not needing to use the food bank at all. And alongside that, we've been able to enable £11,190 worth of support so that they can gain financially by looking at benefits and universal credit checks. But the reason for referral remains quite complicated. If we look at our data, we would say that the main reason for referral is low income. But we recognise that data is somewhat meaningless. It's a catch-all for everything. Reasons for referral are not normally limited to one thing. They're multifaceted and complex and need a lot of different agencies to be working together and a lot of different support given. So rather than talk to you about the reasons for referral, I wanted to share with you the story of a client. And this is a story that one of our food bank clients was willing to share with us, and a video was kindly put together in conjunction and a partnership with Cirencester College that we've been working on to develop some new media. So rather than me telling it, I'm going to let Harriet tell her story.
I like to start off by saying that I've worked every single day since I was 13 years old, working in a chip shop right through to when I was a single parent. Until a couple of years ago, I worked night shifts as a carer and my children would sleep at my mum's house while I worked. I was a single mother for a while, as I had previously moved house to get away from an abusive partner. After enduring years of abuse, I finally got out, but accumulated some debt as a result. I was declared bankrupt in 2019. At this time, after my second child was diagnosed with a rare chromosome disorder, as well as autism, I had previously been diagnosed with a BPD, borderline personality disorder, and had been sectioned under the Mental Health Act of 2011. For those who might not be familiar with BPD, it's a mental disorder which means you're more susceptible to emotional dysregulation or negative thoughts. So, as you can imagine, this and caring for my 2 autistic children on my own made it impossible for me to continue working. I now have a new husband who works as a security guard. He had some debts of his own when we met, and we were discharged from bankruptcy a year later. Unfortunately, this is when my mental health began to deteriorate, and after meetings with the school my boys attended, we agreed it would be best for my husband to become a full-time carer for them. We also had a baby daughter in 2021, and before we knew it, we had another beautiful child in our home. My plan was to undergo as much education as I could during this time. However, the changes that the COVID-19 pandemic made to all of our lives made this extremely difficult to actually do. So in the beginning of 2022, my husband had to leave his part-time employment and claim carer's allowance. This is basically the money you get if you work full-time as a carer for a disabled person. The catch is, there's always a wait when claiming benefits. And this time, we had to wait 11 weeks before getting a confirmed decision. This meant 11 weeks without knowing if we would get that payment. On top of that, the universal credit we claimed was getting deducted because of my bankruptcy. So we were left with very little income at the time. I was referred to the food bank, and no way to even get to a shop with an extra £1 as we live in a very rural area. After spending what we were given from universal credit on our bills and important bits for the children, and using every item I could think of sitting in our food cupboards to provide for my family, we referred to the Cirencester Foodbank by the school. I relied on the free school meal system, and the difference it made to our lives knowing my children are getting a good healthy hot meal every weekday is a blessed relief. The food bank called me later that day. I was nervous at first and, to be honest, embarrassed. I felt the weight on my shoulders knowing as a parent I had to ask for help to provide for my family. I know now and want to stress that it is good to ask for help because it means you're one step closer to releasing that weight off your shoulders. The food bank was lovely on the phone. They reassured me and did not judge me at all. They simply asked me a few questions about the size of my family, allergies, and stuff like that. They even asked if we needed any toiletries for our baby girl. Honestly, the only thing I felt from them is that they just wanted to know how to help. The food bank parcel was dropped at our door 24 hours later. They had catered for our family size, allergies, and toiletries just as we had discussed over the phone. They also gave us fresh fruit and vegetables, shampoos, conditioners. We were well catered for. Unfortunately, one of my sons had contracted COVID-19 the day after our parcel was delivered, so really, the food bank was such a blessing for us. You don't realise how much grown children eat until you haven't got much of it. But the food bank made sure we could all keep eating throughout the isolation period, and I'll forever be grateful for the service they provide. I had always heard about the food bank, and even donated food in the past. However, I never thought that I would be in a situation where I would need to use it myself. To be honest, a lot of the people that end up there also think this, and can be referred due to circumstances as innocent as a sudden health issue. For those of you wondering why I didn't ask my family or friends for help, I did. But there comes a point where financially you cannot keep asking for money to be lent to you, especially from those you love, when you don't even know when your next payment is coming in. It is unfair for everyone involved. I have an amazing family unit who have helped us so much. They really are incredible grandparents. Unfortunately, not everyone has people like that. It is upsetting that in 2022, the need for food banks is so prevalent in our society. Me and my family, we are living proof that this vital charity is extremely high demand. I understand it's hard for people to fully comprehend the sorrow a mother or father has when they cannot provide the most basic of items for their family due to circumstances outside of their control. But something that we can all agree on is that every parent's worst nightmare is not being able to provide for their family. I was ashamed to need to use the food bank. I feel that this must be highlighted, but if sharing my story means that hopefully, somewhere, one hungry belly can go to bed tonight full of food, then sharing my story was worth it.
So what are we going to be doing to help those who need our support? Well, we want to share with you a new vision we have for our food bank. A vision that doesn't just keep us operating the status quo and providing sticking plasters while people go in need. And this vision revolves around a few different things, but at the core of it, it's working in partnership. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that there are processes for early intervention for support. And that operates on two fronts. Not only can people get support and help from the food bank as quickly as possible, but also that we as a food bank can start to work higher up the food insecurity pyramid and get people help before they end up in food poverty. And that means working closely with our wonderful referral partners and the support agencies that work so hard to support those in need. We're really keen to expand upon this, which is why one of the key things we've done is in relaunching our Cirencester Foodbank hub, not to just simply reopen it as a collection centre for food parcels, but as a support space where we have signposting and support for clients when they come in through the door. Clients are offered that help so that we can start to break that cycle of food poverty that they find themselves in. But we also want to be working closely with our community partners. We recognise that it's really important that we maintain food parcels to those in need to get that short-term support that they need. But we actually want our community to be working together to be tackling the core reasons and causes of food poverty. We want to see people advocating for change. We want to work with our partner organisations so that we can actually start to affect long-term change in our communities. And we want to see our community work together to be connected so that we can help people access dignified support at the earliest possible opportunity. As part of this, we've got a few different things that we're going to be prioritising over the next year. Obviously, we've had a significant change to our operating model where we moved to a delivery service. We're really keen to work with referral partners and clients to make sure that they are able to easily get support and to get support for their clients. We want to make sure that it's easy to refer into the food bank, but it's also easy for our clients to get the specialist support that they need. So we're going to be undertaking a theory of change, a period of learning, while we work with referral partners and clients to identify whether the changes we made over the pandemic, which had to be put into place quickly, actually are benefiting those who need to access and use our service. So that's something we call referral pathways. But alongside that, we want to make sure that support comes in really early on in that process. And as I say, even before people find themselves in food poverty. We're doing some of this through our new hybrid model, where we start to reintroduce food bank hubs, support hubs, into local communities. And we're currently trialling that at Cirencester Opportunity Group, which is actually just down the road from us where we are today, looking at how we can be better at intervening in crises early on and getting support that is needed for clients. A core part of what we want to become is an organisation that is led by data. And we recognise the limitations we have on the data we are gathering and that even we are presenting to you today. It is not perfect. It is not complete. So over the next 12 months, we are going to be working hard to actually draw out more from that data so we can really look at how we can be affecting the issues that lead people into food poverty. We want to be continuously sharing that information with other support agencies, with our referral networks, but we hope also that they will be sharing information back with us so that we can get more pieces of this jigsaw and we can be more effective at dealing with those underlying issues that lead people and keep people in food crises. And as part of that, we are going to be looking at how we can be more targeted with our signposting. I mentioned that a key bit of data, a key piece of insight that we drew out of our report this year was how many clients are being referred through routes where they might not get the support that they need to deal with the underlying crisis. We want to be more targeted with our own signposting support, but also with referring into partners so that those people who have come through those routes where they haven't got additional support to break that crisis can be looked after, can be accompanied, can be helped to deal with the issues that they are facing. And for us, that means things like bringing more support into educational settings, bringing more support to those who are referred in by healthcare sectors, helping people who otherwise have no other support, who don't know how to access support on how to get it. So as part of that, we want to be working over the next 12 months with educational establishments to see whether or not we can actually bring up a model and develop a model that will allow for frontline support to be in the school setting and easily accessible to schools and school families. We don't intend to look at just delivering that ourselves. We want to be working with our support partners to see how that could be achieved so that that support is right at the forefront of where people need it, and it's meeting them where they are at. We talked about holiday provision, which is where we're seeing a huge number of referrals come in from. We are really pleased that Gloucester County Council leaders have made a commitment to No Child Goes Hungry. But we want to see that commitment spread further into actually the funding for some of the schemes that they have in place. The Holiday Free School Meals Scheme was actually only funded through COVID grant funding. And it actually meant that families never knew whether, for certain, they were going to see holiday free school meal vouchers to help them over the holiday periods until very close to the holiday periods, normally just in the term before. That COVID grant funding actually has run out, and Gloucester County Council have transferred the funding for those vouchers now to the holiday support, to the Household Support Fund. That only runs until the end of March next year. We want to see a commitment to long-term funding, permanent funding, to ensure that those most in need on free school meals actually are supported during really difficult times of the year, and that they're confident that support will be in place rather than worrying that it might disappear. And we are committing to supporting those clients who need financial inclusion advice. We talked about those who are in debt, but we know more clients who actually just have difficulty in managing their money. So we are looking to support a debt caseworker. We're looking to partner with organisations that provide debt advice and money management skills so that that can be in our centres, it can be in our communities. People have different avenues that they can turn to get support in some of those areas where they're just unable to break free from themselves. So as part of that, we're going to be looking at how we develop that partnership going forward. And we're talking with a number of different key players within financial inclusion to work out a suitable way forward, and talking with those who have lived experience of food poverty to work out how they can easily access that provision. And it would be wrong of me to not highlight the fact that we have come out of a crisis, but we are facing another. And we are moving into a period where cost of living is going up, fuel costs, which connect into transport deprivation and poverty, are going up, and energy costs are going up and continue to rise. And for those who are the most vulnerable, this brings about a decision whether they are able to eat or heat their homes. So we will commit to supporting food bank clients who are in fuel crisis as well by working with our partners at the Fuel Bank Foundation, at Warming Well, through Citizens Advice to ensure that they get energy advice and support alongside the support from the food bank to try and help them to cope with all of these escalating costs. As I say, these are goals that we do not intend to undertake alone. They are goals that we will be working closely with our volunteers, those in our communities, those with lived experience, those who are at the front line of support, those who are in education, healthcare and other services. So we hope that by sharing these and by sharing some of the highlights from the data this morning, that actually that will have maybe given you a little bit more of the jigsaw puzzle that you didn't have before. And we want to hear back from you about what you're seeing. We want to work closely with everyone in our community to actually bring about real change, to impact the underlying issues that cause food poverty, and to see an eventual end to food banks in the South Cotswolds.